right, we are in progress with Stacie Capone on Play It Forward. She is actor, producer of Love's Baby Soft, a very delightful film, shot in beautiful monochromatic color spectrum, similar to the one you're in now. I just love it. And thank you so much for being on the show. Would you like to introduce yourself or your film in any way before we start?
Sure. Thank you for having me. And
Of course.
yes, I'm Stacie Capone, actress and producer, and obviously a big fan of retro vintage things. I love the 70s. And so I was very excited when this film was brought to me by a producer that I had worked with about 10 years ago. And she thought I'd be great, that I'd grown up and I'd be great for the mom. So it was super exciting.
That's great. Yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. It was acting was great. The cast was great. It's a very cute story, and there's also a lot of heart to it. And it's also, a serious subject. I mean, it's a coming of age story. The storyline is around a young girl who wants to grow up maybe quicker than she needs to, and she has her babysitter who is also in the process of growing up, and who the younger girl sees as like a this beautiful, fully developed woman. And then with the help of mom, who is a mature woman who's had life experience, they kind of all need that grounding. And it's a very, very smart movie. So with that introduction, the first question is, what is your inspiring the connection, the emotional connection that inspired you and kind of got you through this process of making the movie?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. The story itself was inspired by the writer Vicky Spiegel's actual life experience when she was growing up as a teen, 12. And she had a babysitter that she thought was the coolest girl ever. And when she brought the story to us, I I think that for me, I mean, I think for most people, boys and girls, men and women, we've all had that weird, like awkward stage where we think we're older or we want to sit at the adults table and we're not there yet, but we think we should be. And so it's like a combination of like that is all inside of us. And I think it's like a very inspiring slash relatable thing for growing up. And I wanted to share that with the world in this interesting tale. And so when the story first came to me, the babysitter reflected Vicky's childhood where she had a white babysitter. And I was like, what happens if we make this film more reflective of today and what society looks like today, even if we set it in the 70s? So we keep it in the 70s, but what if we bring in a Black babysitter? What if we make it more what we're seeing? And she really liked that idea. And when we were looking for directors, a woman that I worked with, that I run this women in film group called the Filmmakers. She was part of it. She grew up in the South, and she had a Black babysitter that she also looked up to and adored. And I was like, oh, this is like a match made in heaven. Let's make this project together.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
In exploring the themes of the movie, I mean, coming of age and sex, having sex is such a big part of coming of age, and understanding, you know, how to deal with these, of course, very powerful feelings, and how to deal with these powerful feelings in a mature way, and um how not to be, to have good experience, and
Yeah.
how not to be taken advantage of. And this film deals with that. So prefacing with that and talking about the themes and the message of the movie, how do you as a viewer see the message and the meaning of the story?
We're all always learning and we're always growing up. Like I think even in the film, the mom, Janice, is still growing up. And we need people around us that maybe have more lived experience that we can ask questions of and that we can learn from, that we can have, that could be a role model or not. And I think like the message of the film is don't be afraid to talk to other people. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You know, there are people out there that maybe will take care of you or that you can lean on. And I think like that's kind of one of the things that I loved about the script is that it's three women, different generations, but they all learn from one another and they're all kind of role models for one another in a way.
Yeah. And, it kind of now makes sense for what you're saying with, how you said earlier on, you were like, well, let's get some, more diversity in here. And I think what you just said brings it more fully into like, oh, yeah, that's right. Understanding for me, because it's like, not only is it such a powerful message to ask for help, essentially to ask others to share yourself, like, I don't know what's going on, but it's so cool to do it within a context of diversity, and whether that's age or color or sex or whatever, occupation, whatever it is, that, sharing of multifaceted perspectives to get the whole picture, right? Like all the blind people touching the elephant, not arguing about it, but say, hey, all right, let's collaborate.
Yeah.
So that I think is so awesome because you do forget, as an adult, like I've kind of now at 48, I've grown to a place where like, all right, I want to know what you think about this. I'm not going to do it necessarily, but I want to know you. Tell me, I had a kid, she's 4, and I'm like, well, what do you guys do? What do you guys do? What do you guys do? And most people can't give you a straight answer. I mean, that's another discussion, but they can't, right? They really can't. And I'm like, well, how do you discipline? How do you do it? They're just like, so it's so important because as a youth and as that youth that's trying to be an adult or be a man or a young woman, you don't want to show your vulnerability.
Right.
And to know and to have an adult say, hey, we're all still growing up.
Exactly. And I think like that's you we're all still learning and we can all learn from one another. And it's a nice conversation to have where you're not like I loved about the adult, and I talked to this with our director. We didn't want the mom to come off as like, the scolding mom, like, oh, life is so hard. And blah, you can't grow up this fast, like, no, we wanted her to be, not that she was the cool mom, but, she would have a conversation. And like, that's really where the babysitter and the mom, that little interchange at the end was super important
Yeah, it
because it
was.
shows that we can talk about this. We
Yeah,
can like, it doesn't have to be a bad thing.
right. It was a very balanced picture of a mother and a single mother, in a period where that was still very new.
Yes.
And it was definitely pushing sort of a progressive envelope. I think that's a great message, and I'm really glad you reminded me of it today. Um, the last question, I'll play it forward, and maybe we could stretch this out because I don't want to say goodbye so quickly. Um, but the last message, play it forward, or message question is, how have you been changed as a person since making the movie?
Hmm. Well, that's such an so sadly, our director passed away.
Oh my.
Yeah, so uh about less than a year after we made the film, her and her mom were in a fatal car
Jeez.
accident.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. So sorry.
So I think there's the film is tangled up in a lot of things. Because as you know, sets can get intense and there can be weird things that
Oh
go
yeah.
down, and
Oh yeah.
um so this while it was a lovely experience, there were some things that I learned on set, such as a producer, as a creative producer, I should trust. I've been doing this a while, and I should trust my voice a little bit more. So I've learned that going forward, my voice does count. And when I know something, I know something, and I should believe that I know that. And I learned that, but I also learned that, life is short, and can't take days for granted, and make the things that you want to make, and explore what you want to explore, and enjoy every day.
Yeah, that's nuanced. I get it. Wow. That's powerful, because I can understand what you're saying, on the levels that, it's there. And your voice and recognizing it and having faith in it and being able to present your voice in a way that is firm and fair and positive and constructive and respectful is, something I've had to learn. I think I'm decent at it now, but I may not have always been, and I certainly, I'm sure, have, over articulated myself at times, maybe. So it's a balance,
Yeah, it's a balance. And I think, as women in this industry, you
right?
often get overlooked, or we definitely communicate in different ways. And most of my sets have a large female representation. Our sets are usually not typically what you normally see on a film set. This set was a little bit different because we also filmed during COVID. So it was like the tail end, but that was crazy. And it's right when things started to open up. And so crews were very sparse. Everyone was booked. We went through like 3 production designers. It was a
Yeah,
crazy time for crews.
yeah,
So the crew wasn't what you typically see on one of my sets. So it was like a different energy to work with.
gotcha. Well, it's a great film. You can be proud of it. I'm sure you are. It
Yes.
turned out really well.
Thank you.
Stacie Capone. The film is Love's Baby Soft. Thank you so much for being on Play It Forward today. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, till next time, everybody. Peace on Play It Forward. Bye, Stacie.
Bye.